This is Karen with newclevelandradio.net, and it's time for How to Super Age with Elise Marie Collins. And Elise, when I introduced you to your guest for today, I knew that there was something in his background that was going to help us with super aging, although that's not the, his true message. But I thought this would be quite interesting to see how someone who is living a journey and has created some tools to get through life will help us who are on this journey of living life to the fullest. So, welcome to New Cleveland Radio and How to Super Age.
Thank you so much, Karen. I just want to, before I introduce our guests, I just want to shout out Yes I Can Coaching, one of our sponsors, and then also Super Ager. This is not the book, but it's a postcard with the book cover. It's a book that does we're going to talk about spirituality, fitness today, and this is all included in this book. Lots of stories of super agers. It's inspiring. It has tips and tricks. And that's what this podcast is about, giving you tips and tricks on how to age well at any stage of your journey, because it's part of the journey of life. And we're going to hear more about our guest journey in a moment. I'm going to introduce him. Is it Cristiano?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, Cristiano. He's not just another guest.
Uh,
Every week we have unique guests, you know that, but he's also a storyteller and a spiritual companion. He bridges the raw edges of life with profound insight. And he was once a personal trainer chasing physical perfection. I think he's still doing that, but I think on a different way. We'll find out. His path shifted after he had a transformative ayahuasca journey in the Peruvian jungle. He opened to his shadow work, authentic living, and spiritual integration. Today, his work blends poetry, one of my loves. I even have a poetry book. Well, I'm not going to pick it up right now, but humor, and I love humor, and wisdom. Love that too. To explore healing. So I'm going to say that again because I added to it. Today, his work blends poetry, humor, and wisdom to explore healing, transformation, and awakening in a way that's both relatable and inspiring. His honest, vulnerable voice, infused with depth and playful irreverence, makes every conversation impactful and memorable. He's on Instagram at cristiano.cola. So, welcome our guests. Is there anything else you want to give our audience to help them get to know you?
I think you've summarized my story myself pretty well. So thank you for the introduction, and I'm excited to talk to you and share about my journey.
Yeah, thank you. And if you're wondering about Cristiano's beautiful accent, I believe you're Italian. You're an Italian by birth, born in Italy, and then you've been living in Australia. Is that correct?
Yes, I was born in Italy and I stayed until the age of 24, and then from 2018 to early 2025, I've lived in Australia, Melbourne, and I've came back recently early this year.
So he's quite the world traveler to live in all those different places. And now you're speaking to us here in different parts of the United States. So we're all over the globe, literally, which I love about these podcasts and being able to connect online. Uh, what really interests me about your work, and I think that Karen was also alluding to in the intro, was that you are, I believe, are you still a personal trainer?
Well, I am following a few clients online still, and yes, I will keep that as a side thing, but I'm still working with clients, yes.
So, I guess what I'm getting at is the body is a container.
Mm.
This is my take. And then we have something inside, which someone might call a spirit, or we have a spiritual side. And I think that's so important as we age, because so much of Western culture is all about you're just your physical body, and your physical body is Sorry, there's a ringing. Yeah. Your physical body is all that you are. So how your journey brought you to we're more than the physical body. And I think that's what's important to super aging, because we get to integrate those even more as we age. And that a lot of traditions, I'm really steeped in the yoga tradition, and that's part of that tradition. But I'd love to hear your take on that, because I think melding the spiritual with the physical, however you do that in your practice, that is so important to aging, because then we know we're not just this physical body that is taking us through life and going through its own phases.
Yeah. I like you've mentioned that Western people they know just the body, but I will take that as a step further and say that most people they don't even know how to treat their own body. They don't know where to feel emotions. They don't know how to tap into them through their physicality. So that's my personal view on it. But back to the other question. Yes, my experience as a personal trainer definitely taught me how to first of all care for people and back them up, and to follow them in a journey that through their physical allowed them to also get to know them under different aspects, whether emotional or spiritual. But the reason I've decided to, in this phase of my life, stepping away from the face-to-face training is because I've discovered that just focusing on the physical aspect, it wouldn't inspire me anymore. And it was against the scope of practice to deal with the emotional state of my clients, to deal with the spirituality. And it was risky because I didn't have the tools, and I couldn't do it legally. But that was my interest. So I'm glad that in that phase of my life, I was able to get to know about the body, in an aesthetic way, whether through, training for strength or running or whatever was the training. Um, and that allowed me to tap into the emotional and the spiritual and the mental aspect of the body. Because I believe we have four bodies, which is the mental, the physical, the spiritual, and the emotional. And we must find a way to create communication in between all of them for wholeness sake. And until a certain point, I didn't know how to take care of the spiritual, especially the emotional. Um, so I was just touching on the mental, and it was all about the external, like what we see as a first impact when we recognize a human being. Um, so through my experience, then transitioning more into the spiritual aspect and the emotional of the body. Obviously, I'm still integrating my experience in my coaching practices or my own personal practices. Um, but I've discovered that there's so much we don't know about our body, um, and all our bodies, um, that complement how we show up in life, how we heal, how we feel about ourselves, and our perception of the world as well.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that answer. And I love that you're talking about the four bodies, the emotional, spiritual, mental, and physical. And you speak about that you facilitate communication between those bodies. Is there any, I would love to hear a little more on that. And then if you have any tips for our audience. I know they can work with you probably because you're doing your work online, but do you have some tips on some simple ways like each of us could do that today? What could I do today I know everyone's in different time zones, but it's earlier where I am, so I have a full day where I can work on integrating those bodies. Some
Yeah,
of us might be going to sleep earlier,
yeah.
sooner rather than later. So yeah, tell us a little more, and then if you have any tips.
Yeah, well, obviously it needs to be an individual kind of research to know what works for you, because what's working for me, it might not work for everyone else. But part of my practices is definitely physical training, whether it's through running helps me a lot clear out my stuck energies and get my body moving, sweating, getting my blood flow. And it helps clarify my mind at the same times because I'm opening up channels to receive information, to create. Sometimes I wish I had a journal when I run because I get so many, information and um, creativity flowing through me. So that's one thing. Or even like walking in nature. It's a great way to do it. Um, so I think the physical training is really important, um, to tap into the emotional and the mental. Um, I do I do practice silence, conscious silence. Um, whether it's in my home, finding 10, 15 minutes to sit in silence without any distraction, but I prefer doing it in nature because I can connect to the land, and nature always provides the right information at the right time. Um, Different sorts of meditation. I do meditate on death quite a lot, and that helps me connect with life. In my upcoming book, there's a meditation on death that I outlined, with each step. But if you want to give it a go today, I suggest to just sit 10 minutes as you meditate, take a few deep breaths, and then just reflect on what death means to you, and just let things arise, without expectations, and see what arises. It might be uncomfortable, but it's part of the healing. So those are my main practices. In regard to the spiritual, connecting with stones. Recently, I've started to do that quite a lot, um, and somatically as well, placing a hand on my heart whenever I feel anxious, placing a hand on my throat whenever I feel, I want to express something, but it doesn't come out. And usually, as soon as I do that, I take a deep breath and, it all goes away. So those are my main practices.
One of the words I heard you use is not having expectations. And I think that's key as we want to feel better about who we are and what we're feeling. Um, I know that when I first was, it was first suggested to me that I should meditate every day. In the beginning, I tried and my mind just wandered, and I thought, oh, this is useless. It's not happening. And then I finally spoke to somebody who said, maybe that's your form of meditation. Let it go. Don't expect it to be like somebody else's.
Yeah.
And when you complete your meditation, whether it's a couple of minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it is, take a piece of paper and a pencil and write down how you're feeling right then. Not how you felt during it, but right then. And that got me to the point where I can just meditate at just about any time of day or night when my body is just going faster than it needs to. And it helps me calm, but it helps me sense what else is going on, not just in my brain, but in
Yeah.
the rest of my body.
Yeah. And there's so much wisdom in what you said. And I think there's not enough emphasis, nowadays into really trusting our own wisdom. And we always, bombarded with informations 24/7. This guru is saying one thing, the other guru is saying another completely different thing, and we get confused. We don't know who to listen to. But if we really, sit with ourselves, we always have the right answer for us. So we need to find the courage to challenge, each other's wisdom in a way with compassion, obviously, but to not to take what's being said as the ultimate truth, because it might not be the right thing for us, and that's what keeps us stuck in a loop of confusion, and we struggle to heal, and that's not what healing is.
Yeah, I love so many things that you said, and really talking about each person is unique, and that they have their own healing path. We all have a fingerprint, different fingerprints, but they're each different. And I'd say that it also can be a challenge, as Kieran said. Sometimes we think it's going to be an easy pill, but it's not, to find what practices work for each one of us. Do you have any stories of clients that you've worked with, finding the practices and the connections for some of the people you've worked with? Because I think hearing stories, we heard yours, but maybe some other ones, if you have any, how people can find their own practice, because that sparks something in them that this is possible.
Yeah. Well, in regards to the emotional and the spiritual, I'm not fully into coaching people with that. I can share some stories of physical transformation and how that helped them overcome some, mental obstacles. So I would say the first one that comes to mind. So I was coaching this man. He's from the Philippines. He was in his late 30s, and after COVID, he put on some serious weight, probably 20-25 kilos. And he always, anytime he'd find some inspiration or courage to start his fitness journey, he would always find an excuse to pull back and not pulling the trigger. But after COVID, he pulled the trigger, and he committed himself to the journey. And 1 year later, he was competing in a bodybuilding competition.
Wow.
And he was a totally different person, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. He's always been a spiritual person, because in the Philippines and in Asia, they have a good they have good background in regards to spirituality, so they know how to take care of themselves. But sometimes, they're not in a good physical, um, shape or health. So I was able to support him and give him the tools to firstly take care of his nutrition, what to get rid of, and give him a structure. And I understood really well that he liked the structure, so he liked to be told what to do without too much information, which some people are like that. But some people, they want all the behind the scenes. They want to know why for every single thing. So that aspect made my job easier in a way, because I just gave him the plan and he just followed it. So yeah, 12 months later, he actually won the bodybuilding competition. So he had a six pack, he had, the perfect body, and just turned 40 as well. So accomplishing that in his 40s was a great success.
That is so cool. And for our listeners, I believe a kilo is how many pounds?
I have no idea.
I think it's, somebody can look it up. I think it's more, what is a kilo? Well, anyway, they lost, just to put it into perspective.
I
Uh,
can sorry to interrupt. I can maybe share the body fat percentage. Maybe it's easier.
let's see. It's 2.2 pounds. So that's like 50, more than 50 pounds almost. I just wanted to frame that for our listeners. That's because 20 pounds doesn't sound like too much, but when you say 50 pounds, loses that and gains muscle. Well, I don't know how much he lost, but we heard the transformation because muscle weighs more than other adipose tissue. So that's a beautiful story. And as a yoga teacher, yoga brings physical and spiritual together. But I mean, I think anyone who has been on a physical journey, maybe worked with a trainer or done, something like enter a bodybuilding contest and then winning, it does transform you spiritually and emotionally. And the other thing can happen, like we could go on a journey to start meditating, and that will also transform us physically. I love that about yoga because some people, I actually started by meditating, then I turned to yoga because, if you're sitting meditating, you need to have a strong body to be able to sit. And then if you do yoga, you're going to start to transform everything else. So then you may also decide to meditate or to bring in more spiritual practices. So that was a beautiful, beautiful story. You mentioned a book, and it may not be your first book. Could you tell us a little bit about your books or book that you've written?
I'm writing my first book, which is called Awakened by the Forest, and it is a memoir of ayahuasca and inner evolution, which is about my experience with ayahuasca in the jungle and the lessons I've got from each ceremony, and my experience in the jungle, connecting with people, with shamans, with nature, and it traced back to my childhood traumas. So there's a lot of memoir in the background to set the foundation for the transformation that I brackets obtain afterwards. And the practices I use to integrate that experience, because it wasn't about the experience that changed my life. It was the willingness to change and integrate that experience in the collective of my personality, that it is allowing healing to occur. And the book will be ready in 2 or 3 months. I am actually undergoing the second round of developmental editing, so I will publish it first in English and then in my mother country.
I love it. Nice. Well, keep us in the loop and we'll definitely help you promote that book. It sounds
Thank you.
great. And I like it sounds like a memoir that has healing qualities and that can also give the reader ideas. So I really like that. And I like what you said about not just the ayahuasca, um, but the willingness to integrate that. That was very powerful because I think I actually did ayahuasca like
Oh,
over
wow.
30 years ago though. And it was like nobody knew what it was. I mean, it was, I couldn't even explain what I did. I did go on a spiritual pilgrimage and we went to Brazil and Peru
Yeah.
and I was with a group and not everybody did. We didn't even know what it was. It was like we went to see a shaman and he's like, take this stuff. And so I can totally, you're giving me some ideas like how I didn't integrate that as much in my life, especially I didn't even know where to put it. It was just such a different thing and nobody was talking about it. Like now it's become something more well known. Not everybody knows about it. Also, people are doing a lot of, you know, I can't think of the word, but more guided spiritual journeys with plant-based substances, we'll
Yeah.
call them. And I think sometimes that can be almost like hyped up, but if you don't integrate the information you get, then what's the point? It's just like getting drunk on Saturday night to me. So I love that you're saying that. And I think that's going to be something valuable in your memoir, because those substances, whatever they are, I mean, I'm just saying not whatever they are, but there's different ones in different cultures, but they're taking you out of your everyday life, but then you have to get back into that life, right? And if you're
Yeah.
just escaping, it can become a form of escapism. So do you have anything to say about that integration? Because I think that's really important, and I can just sense it in your beingness that you have a lot of integration.
Well, yeah, the willingness to integrate and the willingness to change, or as I like to rephrase it lately, returning home. So yes, it is a transformation, but it is a returning home to ourselves, um, especially to our inner child, which is where I feel everything starts from the creativity of and the spontaneity of when we were a child, and we lose that innocence so easy when we get into adulthood. So ayahuasca really helped me um, reconnect with my inner child, with his creativity, with his love, um, and transform that love with integration into unconditional love, which is a tough challenge. But at least we are trying. And yes, willingness to change is so important, because we take responsibility for the journey. We don't give our power away to other people, not even to ayahuasca, because we hold that power. We hold the keys for our freedom, for our healing. And what ayahuasca taught me is to get rid of the victim mindset and to take ownership of my story and my life. And one of the keys to do that is the willingness to take those lessons and really trying to embody them, and not to trying to understand them logically. Otherwise, it becomes an artificial sort of process if we are in our brain too much. And that's why the somatical practices I shared before, they come into place, because they cement those lessons into our body, and we allow ourselves to the freedom to go back to those lessons anytime we want to. So yeah, I was privileged to work with the shamans that they taught me how to care for my body in a more gentle way, and how to carry that into my everyday life.
I'm hoping that those who are listening, especially those who are seniors, really start to realize that all the baggage that we carry with us through life, we are allowed to shed it. We are allowed to be kind to ourselves. It's not about just being there for other people and thinking that what I have today is all I'm going to have. As long as you're breathing, life is going on. So take the opportunity to allow yourself to find that inner child and live life to the fullest. And there's just so many ways that we can do it. And I'm just grateful to learn about your journey, and can't wait to read the book, because I'm hoping that it's going to spur me on in some other ways.
Thank you so much. And if I can add to that, that's when shadow work comes into play. And because you said it really well. And I think as people, sometimes we forget to care for ourselves, because we think we are being selfish, but there's no such thing. If we can't care for ourselves, we can't show up fully to the world and do that for other people.
Exactly.
And sometimes we struggle to, and I put myself, because I used to be that person. I've never been a people pleaser, but sometimes, you know, we let our boundaries down and we don't respect them, firstly, and that's how people take advantage of us, and we lose our self-esteem. So sometimes we struggle um, to accept the traits that we don't like about ourselves, because we think we need to be kind, always polite, always say the right thing, always do the right thing for other people so we don't let them down. But we are letting down ourselves
Exactly.
because we struggle to accept. And that's where shadow work helped me accept those traits that I despised about myself, and love them, and taking them back into my collective personality, and not treat them as a split part of myself. And that was another key takeaway um, from my ayahuasca experience.
Thank you so much for that. And I also wanted to add, the ayahuasca is something that can take you on a journey, can give you insight. You don't necessarily have to do that to find your spiritual path, or to let go of baggage, or whatever you want to let go of. But I wanted to hear, maybe you could define for our audience, just in case people don't know what a somatic practice is, and do you have any somatic practices that you want to share with our audience today?
Yes, I began my journey with Tantra in early 2024 to explore my sexuality through body work, and how to channel, my sexuality and the life force of our sexual selves into other outlets, such as creativity, authenticity, and presence, especially, and how to move that energy, and not just use it as a way of connecting sexually to ourselves, or to people of the same gender or the opposite gender. So Tantra um, helped me heal too. It is a big part of my healing journey. Um, yes, so that's a practice I carry to these days. It takes lots of exploration, I should say. It is sometimes a lot more challenging than shadow work, because as humans, and the sexual desire is probably the most um, after food, after the desire for food and nutrition is one of the most powerful desires of humans. And it is misunderstood sometimes, or it is used um, toxically, or not in a wise way. And Tantra helped me uh, claim back um, my sexual self, and to allow myself to open new channels to explore creativity, and to explore healthier way to connect to myself, and women in general. So it is a practice I am deepening my knowledge. And for those who don't know Tantra, it is a practice that was born in India, and it is used to master energy and to move sexual energy in the body. Um, for both men and women, through the exploration of body work and also the genitals, which is where most people they can hold, guilt, shame, or like strong emotions such as fear, grief. So Tantra is only 15-20% focused on sexuality and other 80% spirituality. I have adventured into Tantra at that time merely for sexuality, but now I'm deepening onto the spiritual as well, and connecting the both, the spiritual and the sexual.
And who do you study with, or how do you study Tantra? How would
So
one go
at the
about it?
time, yes, at the time I was in Melbourne, so I studied with her name is Elisa Caro, and she's a Tantra practitioner and a body worker. So I did a few tantric circles with her. And a tantric circle is where people they share their insecurities in regards to sex, their fear in regards to sex. And then I've done one-on-one individual sessions of body work with her and with someone else in Italy at the moment.
Thank you for that. Yeah, because I think that Tantra can be misunderstood as something we hear it, and I'm not sure how most people hear it, but sometimes it's thought of as only sexual. But as you said, that's one component, but it's really about integrating and freeing up your energy.
Yeah.
So I'm sure people want to know how can they explore that. So I think you may have a practitioner near you. I don't know if there's any uh way to find someone besides a Google search, but yeah, because we're all in different places. So I just wanted to
Yeah.
extend that
Right.
for any listeners who are curious. I'm sure there's YouTube videos, but I don't know if they're all I know some can be maybe exploiting that word. So be careful. Yeah.
Yeah, and just like you said with ayahuasca, you don't have to do it if it doesn't feel right. You like listen to that, listen to your intuition, and try something else.
Yeah, and also that reminds me, just so we define a somatic practice. A somatic practice is something, I don't know exactly what the definition is, but to me it's connecting the body, the mind, spirit. You are really paying attention to all these layers. Uh, and I'd love to hear your definition of what a somatic practice is, just so someone, for example, who doesn't necessarily want to learn Tantra or practice Tantra, they could do something different. So I'd
Yeah.
love to hear your definition of a somatic practice.
Yeah, I define somatic practice any practices that focuses on the body, um, where there's a sensory feeling where you're not in your brain, but you are fully immersed in how your body feels, and there's no logic going on, no thinking, nothing else apart from full presence uh, with your body, within and without. So through external touch, for example, or through the way your body feels internally. And there's a sort of union happening in between the body, the emotional, and the spiritual, not the mental in this case. So the mental is out of the equation. So it's emerging in between the body, the spiritual, and the emotional. But even that, must be integrated afterwards, because usually when we have a somatic experience, our body is vulnerable, sensitive, and the most open afterwards. So it is like having a empty container, and you only want to fill the container with positivity, with, you know, high vibration. You don't want to finish a somatic practice and check your emails or check your Instagram. None of that. So anything that puts your body into a full state of presence.
Beautiful.
I love that. I teach gentle flow and more gentle practices of yoga for that reason, because I want to take people on a somatic experience rather than just a workout or physical experience. And I realize many of my students are kind of in between. They might not know, they're dipping their foot in, so to speak. Rather, they might think, I want to go to yoga, but I don't want to go to a, crazy power yoga class where people are putting their foot behind their head or something. But I like to integrate it where they begin to bring up that somatic awareness. The reason I'm telling you this is because I always end my classes with visualizing a beautiful golden sun above your body and filling that with your life force, your light, your vitality, and filling yourself up. Make sure you're full before you go out there in the world, because the world is not set at that vibration to, honor that
Yeah.
the vulnerability that you're speaking of. So I really wanted to highlight that's a beautiful way of putting it. Your body becomes vulnerable, and it can be like an empty vessel. That's literally why I have everyone fill up. And I tell them that, because you could just go back out there, and if you let go of a deep-seated pattern, you're just going to bring it back in because you're
Yeah.
empty. So any
What
other
yoga do you teach?
I study many types of yoga. Mainly my main teacher is Judith Lassiter. So she is it just a lot of different things like nonviolent communication, Iyengar yoga. She's a physical therapist. Um, and then I've studied a lot of meditation myself, so I kind of am a smorgasbord of different practices.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've only tried yin yoga, and I love it.
Yeah.
I definitely can put my foot behind my head.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so many types. I just enjoy I love any kind of yoga almost, but almost. There's some that I'm not into, but because each teacher has a different take on it too.
Yeah.
So I love to just explore when I have a moment. But for me, I like the gentle because it integrates the spiritual work I've done over decades. So yeah.
Yeah. That you said another really wise thing, because sometimes when we, maybe in regards to what I share about Tantra, maybe people now, they want to book a session and they find a practitioner in which they don't, connect with, and they start to think, oh, Tantra is not good. Like, but maybe it was just the practitioner that you didn't click with. But if you click with somebody else, it's actually what works for you. So it's always some trial and error with these types of healing
Yeah.
practices.
Yes, that's so important. Yes, and give yourself that space to trial and error. As Karen said, trial and error with meditation, because sometimes it's going to feel like an error, but the errors are always leading you towards that integration.
Exactly.
Yeah. Any final words for our audience? We can follow you on Instagram. Do you have a website or?
I'm building a website, so not yet ready. But I do have 2 pages on Substack.
Okay.
So the first one, it's called the Hybrid Soul Blog, where I share and write about anything that comes to mind. Sometimes it's poetry. I write a lot about the society issues I observe, shadow work, authenticity. And I have another page which is called Oniric Lives, where I share about I help people to connect with their oniric experiences, their dreams. I don't like to call them dreams because it feels restrictive. They are real experiences. And I share tools how to have a more intimate and intuitive relationship with dreams, and how to let them guide us in a waking life, how to make a symbolic meaning out of them, based on where we are in our lives. So those are my two main pages at the moment.
We'll make sure we put that all in the show notes so that there's no excuse for our listeners to say they didn't know how to get in touch with you. And we're just so glad that you could join us today. And I'm grateful to Podmatch, because if it hadn't been for podmatch.com, I wouldn't have found Cristiano. And now that I have, I'm looking forward to your book and sharing it with my clients as well.
Thank you so much. And it was a fun conversation, and I really enjoyed the curiosity of both of you and being open to hear me out. Maybe sometimes I talk too long, but
You're just fine.
Not at all. It happens with guests, but I would say not at all. You were spot on. Thank you
that's
so
good to hear.
much. And
We know it's getting late in Italy right now, so we're going to let you go enjoy your evening. And Elise, you're just starting your day, and I'm in the middle of my day. So to all of you listening, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again.